If you thought that the Heritage Foundation, the group behind the radical governing blueprint known as Project 2025, was finished dismantling American democracy, think again. Happy men equal a strong nation. Now they're turning their sights even more keenly on America's women, making it harder for women to work, harder for them to live independently, and easier to push them back into financial dependence on husbands or fathers. Do not underestimate the determination of this movement or its hostility toward liberal values and the expansion of democratic rights for groups that they see as outsiders. And they see women as outsiders. Their latest document, Saving America by Saving the Family, a foundation for the next 250 years. You got to give it to these people. They think big. It was published in January. Its purported goal is to reverse the country's declining birth rate. And you can't physically force women, if you can't physically force women to have babies, which is what abortion restrictions aim to do, you can design government policies that pressure women into having more babies. You cut off opportunities outside the home. You make the public sphere hostile to women's independence. You create a system where the only viable path left for women is dependence on a man for survival. In other words, you drag the country back to a time when women had fewer choices. You strip away the soft language about family values. What its proposals would actually accomplish, if carried out, is the rollback of decades of women's freedom. The Heritage Foundation blames the feminist movement for encouraging women to rethink their relationship to men, marriage, children, and family. According to the document, quote, those two forces, big government liberalism and second-wave feminism, combined to radically change how men and women thought about their roles in the home, end quote. In other words, women today have too many choices. Your daughters and granddaughters can dream too big in America and, God forbid, pursue opportunities outside the home. From the perspective of the new right, those freedoms aren't progress. They are, in fact, the problem. So the solution the right proposes is to make those choices harder for women, much, much harder. Quote, the state and federal governments should recognize the natural differences between men and women. They should also preserve this distinction between the sexes in law. The law should discriminate against women, put them back in their place. The plan goes on to discourage women from higher education, arguing that college delays marriage and reduces fertility. Women controlling their own fertility, women seeking higher education, women working outside the home, it's all just bad. But the agenda goes even further than that. The report calls for reshaping tax policy to reward large married families while cutting support for single mothers. Women today have opportunities their grandmothers could only dream of. They can pursue education, careers, independence, lives that extend beyond marriage and motherhood. From the perspective of the new right, that's the crisis. They see women being able to control our own fertility as the root of the problem. They're right. Women being able to control our own fertility is one of the most powerful tools women have for independence. Women who cannot control their own fertility are under greater patriarchal control. The right has already succeeded in stripping the right to abortion from American women. It was never about saving babies. It was entirely about forcing women back into submission. This same line of thinking now sits inside the leadership ranks of the Heritage Foundation, the same group helping shape policy for the Trump administration, which is why this agenda is not just about culture. It's about control over women's futures, because these far-right extremists and the movement surrounding Donald Trump, the real problem is women themselves. Women who think, women who choose. And they may think things and choose things that threaten the power structure of the new right. So their answer is to push women back into their place, to strip away their autonomy, to push them out of public life, to narrow the futures available to them. This is about dragging the country back to a time when women had only one choice: to submit to men. Project 2025 has already shown us how quickly the far right can move their ideas into government policy. And the architects of these plans are not fringe figures. They are inside the administration. The CIA director, John Ratcliffe, the FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, the SEC chair, Paul Atkins, the trade advisor, Peter Navarro, and Russell Vought, one of the chief authors of Project 2025, who now runs the office that oversees the federal budget. The men behind this draconian vision are already in power, which means the stakes for America's women are very real.